All right, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm actually quite tired, so before I go take a nap, I'm going to make a quick video here. So, recently I put up a video of me getting absolutely, basically destroyed. It's a temporary thing. Basically destroyed by Boomkin on the PTR as Paladin. And it didn't take me very long thinking about it to realize that this is actually kind of a good thing and that things are actually kind of balanced. It was the same with getting killed by rogues, and it was the same with getting killed by kitty cat druids and shadow priests to a lesser extent. The problem with shadow priests is you don't really have access to any shadow resist gear on the PTR worth a damn, and it's just a lot of issues with that. Um, but just so we're absolutely clear about the PTR, my thoughts on the PTR so far, and why I don't mind getting killed all over the place by this class or that class is because I'm painfully aware of how the scaling works in the future for both the enemy spellcasters and ourselves as paladins. So to start off with, this is literally the gear that I would be wearing if I was on the PTR. You can see it has 4,200 hit points. When it's sword and board, it has 4,300 hit points. It's got nearly 5,000 mana. It's completely missing librams of any kind. This HP is even a little bit high because it has been given HP to boots. And of course, that forces me to take a Pursuit of Justice. Let's see here. Plus healing is a bit high, which is nice, at about 408. But again, the number one thing that's going to kill you on the PTR is the fact that this number of 4,200 HP is lower than what you have in Phase 3 PvP. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, you remember the video where I was gearing up Rep Paladins, trying to figure out what Rep Paladins should wear in Phase 3? They were having, like, 4,400, 4,500-ish hit points. My current Paladin in Phase 3 has, like, 3,900 hit points. But that's because he's got, like, fire resist enchants or librams. He'd easily be almost to this number with the HP librams. This is horrifyingly bad. Blizzard really did a Paladin a disservice on the PTR by forcing us into combat, into PvP scenarios with just this abysmally low HP. Now let's look at it what it's like in the future. So flash forward to the future. Let's see. I want to scroll that down just slightly. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. Perfect. Flash forward into the future, we suddenly shoot up from 4,200 to 5,600 HP. What the hell? This isn't a tier 1 set. This is literally Molten Core. There's nothing spectacular or difficult to get in this build whatsoever. You got the Duke's Domain. All you got to do is get Exalted with Hydroxine Water Lords, 20 Fire Resist, 22 Stamina. You got an Onyxia Blood Talisman, probably fairly easy to get, 18 Stamina, 20 Fire Resist. Chance to hit with spells, defense plus 11. You got a thick neck piece here. These are all the pieces that are really making this thing kind of buff. And then you just have as much heavy stamina rings you get your hands on, which is like a Myrmidon Signet and a heavy Dark Iron Ring, which is all they really have available data mines so far. Other things to note is that the stats on Tier 1 are the base stats of Tier 1. This is like the only thing that's changed on Tier 1 so far, I think for all the classes, is the set bonuses. The actual stats of Tier 1 are exactly the same, so nobody's really sure what the Tier 1 stats are eventually going to be. But you better believe they're not really going to drop in stamina whatsoever. They'll probably rip off... if you don't know, Tier 1 is notable for basically three things. The first thing it's notable for is that she has an absolute metric shit ton of stamina. She's a very heavy stamina suit. She also, secondly, she has a very heavy fire resistant suit, and actually I think she's more shadow resist than fire resist. Yeah. Looking down there. Lastly, she has actually a ton of spirit on her. In Season of Discovery, I wouldn't be surprised if they rip the spirit off and just start putting more stamina on. or plus healing on the set, believe it or not. So this isn't even final form for tier 1 suit. And you can see that the combination of the PvP trinkets or my bad, the new stamina heavy trinkets and the stamina heavy neck piece available, and even something as simple as the new lava dredger. I was always a big fan of lava dredger, but I liked it better when it was like a 2.9 speed as opposed to 3.2 speed. But this is fine. So nothing here is very spectacular or interesting. 5,600 HP. Other things of note are that I've talked about before is weapon damage changes. So if I scroll down here and I pick up something that is even remotely, what's Thunderstrike doing these days? 68. Something that's even remotely decent in Molten Core. So let's find a Bone Reaver's Edge. They changed it, right? Yeah. So if we slap on a Bone Reaver's Edge is a weapon that has similar damage to or raw DPS to an AQ 40 weapon. Yeah, like an AQ 40 weapon or a Grand Marshal's Claymore. Here is Ashkandi has 81. Hand of Rag has about 80 DPS on her. Kalmandor's Revenge has 81. Of course, Might of Minithil has like 95. She's like she's just like your top tier Nax weapon. I'm looking for high Warlords, Grand Marshals. Okay, you got the War. No. We want the two-handers. Where are you at? The Punisher is 59. Okay, 77. Yeah. So Grand Marshal, Sunderer, big ass axe, like 77 damage. So this is a decent weapon. She's a bit on the high end for Molten Core, but she's definitely not on the low end for Molten Core. You'll notice that if I scroll over weapon damage, we have almost 120 damage per second white damage. And if I do like compare that to the best weapon you can get for two-handed on PTR, let's see here, damage, yes, it's like 81. And it doesn't take very much before I'm like, all right, 81 times 1.2. Actually, I think it's probably going to be like 1.3. Yeah, we still need more. 81 times 1.4. Still need more. God damn. 81 times 1.5. Okay, cool. So you can see here very quickly that the two-handed weapon selection on the PTR is so bad that the sheer act of getting a decent weapon out of Molten Core is going to increase your white damage by like 50%, like damn near 50%. And that's a really big deal because a huge chunk of your damage as a Paladin is basically almost all of your damage is centered around how much white damage you do. How much damage do your seals do? Well, they really do how much based on how much damage your white deals. Seal of Command, how much damage does your white damage deal? Crusader Strike, Divine Storm, well, how much damage does your white damage deal? The only one that's a different metric, of course, is Exorcism. So I'm painfully aware that on the PTR, if you're trying to wield a two-handed weapon, you're basically suffering heavily because your two-handed weapon is literally just a Molten Core one-handed weapon. Actually, the Molten Core one-handed weapons actually do more damage. So that's the first. Well, the first thing I note of the difference between a PTR and actual decent Phase 1 gearing. Whoa. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I lost the stamina. My bad. We'll go lava. Lava. Okay. Season Discovery Lava Dredger. Okay. Cool. First thing I, of course, notice is that you're missing over a Titan's Flask worth of HP on the PTR. Absolutely terrible. The second thing, of course, I notice is that you're missing an absolute metric shit ton of increased white damage. Like this one is 99. Just in the Lava Dredger, but the Lava Dredger is super low. She's only like a 57 damage just because she's like this weird plus healing, stamina, intellect, two-handed hybrid thing going on, which is nice. The spell power on this build is a bit low. She's only 300 as opposed to 400, but that's probably almost entirely due to the fact that the Lawbringer suit has not been updated for Season of Discovery. Because the Lawbringer suit, even though she has plus healing stats on her, Historically, they're actually terrible. There's actually like literally she has like 200 plus healing on her, and like tier 2 has like 250 spell power or something like that. So okay. Uh, why am I happy to get blown up by boomkins and rogues and kitty cats and all that stuff? The first thing is because I'm aware that I'm missing something stupid like 33% of my hit points. Literally, if I go over here and I go 4,200 and I multiply that by 1.333333, you can see that, yeah, I'm missing literally 33% of my HP, which is terrifying. The other terrifying thing is that I'm missing upwards of 50% of my two-handed weapon damage, which is also terrifying. So against rogues, for example, they're easily surviving wreck bombs, pretty much no problem, because you don't have a two-hander worth a damn. They're opening on you for more than 50% of your life because you're missing 33% increase in HP. I'm trying to see if I multiply this by 0.4. Is that how that works? No, it would be 0.6. 5600 times 0.6 equals. Nah, I guess that doesn't work. Anyways, I can't remember quite how that math works. Yeah, so same thing with the kitty cat druids, right? They're easily surviving your counterattack damage. Your HP is nowhere near as much as it should be, so you're forced to stop and heal yourself way too early, which lets them chew on you a bit more, which is really annoying. Against the boomkins, for example, somewhere around 4,500 HP is probably your HP breakpoint. The 4,300 that I've been playing with just isn't enough to get there. And so you're suffering from all the symptoms of not quite being near the breakpoint, but not quite at the HP breakpoint. So, for example, the druids, at least the boomkin that I fought, which I think was basically a glass cannon, their Star Surge or whatever, they have Starfall and Star Surge. I always get them mixed up. One of them crits for like 1,100 HP damage, and the other one can crit you for like 2,900 HP damage. And then they've got some like instant cast spells that will hit you for like 500 and such. That's not right. It's actually 4,000 plus 500. Yeah, that'll hit you for like 500 and such. And what's disgusting about this is that they can do this 4,500-ish damage within like 4.5 seconds or less of spell casting, which is enough damage for them to basically burst you out of existence on the PTR in between your Sacred Shield activations, if that makes sense, right? So you only get like one tick of Sacred Shield as opposed to like two bubbles of Sacred Shield, which is really, really bad. If you get over the hump of that breakpoint, the next thing you know, it's going to take them like 6 seconds or 7.5 seconds of casting. Literally what will end up happening is their Star Surge is on cooldown. They can't really root themselves into place all that well anymore, so they're stuck kind of like trying to like spam Moonfires or Starfire or Sunfires into you to try to kill you, which only do like 500 damage ish, and Sacred Shield's gonna reactivate again, and your hots are still rolling. You can easily survive it, and that's basically what I was seeing in the duels. In the duels. If the druid got lucky, I would explode I would explode like quite on the regular. If the druid didn't get unlucky, or I got lucky with my critical heals, it was very easy for me to out heal the boomkin, and it was very easy for us or for me to initiate a mana war. And we saw, at least in a couple of circumstances, me just straight up win a mana war. So once a mana war was initiated, you could end up winning a mana war. Basically, how things work for Paladin is it's like if you can't survive the burst, you've already screwed up in your gearing. If you can survive the burst, the next question of game balance becomes, do you have enough HPS to outpace their DPS unless they specifically get super lucky on their critical strikes, and you somehow get unlucky on your crit heals. One sec, let me cough. Right? Because if they're bursting on you and you're surviving it, but then you're doing nothing but like holy lighting yourself, and they're doing nothing but DPSing into you, and they're still able to kill you, that's a problem either with your gearing or a problem on Blizzard's end. Like Blizzard screwed up or you screwed up. On the PTR, we didn't see that. If I was able to survive the burst, I was able to out heal and heal to full pretty damn easily and effectively. So there's nothing wrong with the HPS. There's nothing wrong with the mana efficiency. The only error in the equation with the fighting the druids on the PTR is the fact that you're running around with less health than you would have in Phase 3, which is absolutely atrocious. There's other elements here. If you saw, whenever I killed the druid, it was because eye for an eye had done enough reflect damage to the druid that I could actually go offensive. And that's part of what I'm trying to say here. What I'm trying to say is that your HP bar does multiple things for you. The first thing that it's doing for you is that it's causing you to survive bursts. Okay, that's the first thing that it does. The second thing that it does is it gives time for reflect damage to build up. So that would be eye for an eye, that would be reckoning, so forth and so on. If eye for an eye is building up on the enemy spellcaster, eventually they need to stop. They need to cease their DPS and start actually healing themselves, right? Which will interfere with their burst and their ability to kill you. Or they have to risk the paladin suddenly turning on them, and they're like, oh crap, I'm like below 50% life and I have a paladin running at me, which was a few of the circumstances where I actually did beat the boomkin. But you need a big enough HP bar in order to survive the burst, in order to heal yourself, to give time for eye for an eye to do its thing. If you saw in the duels, I was constantly kiting backwards and healing in the duel circle. The whole reason you're doing that is to give time for eye for an eye and your cooldowns to work over the enemy's HP bar. That way it starts interfering with their burst potentially. The third and final thing, and probably the most important thing, or not even the most important thing, the most important thing is surviving the burst. But equally important for your HP bar is that she dictates how long you can press W towards the enemy, like run towards the enemy before you have to heal yourself, which is a really, really, really big deal. And eventually at 5,600 HP, you're going to have tons of HP to work with in order to heal yourself. Everything here, of course, is compounding. So, for example, the more HP you have means the more time that you have to press W towards the enemy. You take longer to kill, which means there's more time for Sacred Shields to reactivate, which gives you even more health, which means you take longer to kill. There's more time for your Holy Shock or anything else you got going on to come off a cooldown, which will increase your HP bar, which will take longer to kill. Other thing, of course, of note is on the PTR I played quite badly. Hopefully I'll get some rematches in and I'll play significantly better. Like I should have been using Holy Shock to heal myself while running at the Druid, as opposed to doing damage while running at the Druid, believe it or not. I wasn't using Holy Shock very much defensively. You might think I should have, but I'll talk about that in a second. Maybe I should have, maybe I shouldn't have, but I'll talk about why you don't want to do that in a second. But yeah, it dictates how long you can press W towards the enemy, which is a really big deal, especially in dueling circles, because if you're kiting away in a straight line, right? If you're doing these little run backs and heals and run backs and heals and run backs and heals, what ends up happening is eventually you get pushed up against the dueling circle, the edge of the dueling arena. And you have no choice but to basically turn around and charge the enemy spellcaster, the enemy druid, the enemy whatever. And your goal is to either kill them or push them back far enough that you can continue your little kiting back routine, if that makes any sense. So if you have more HP to charge at them longer, you get to push them back farther away from the wall, which lets you rinse and repeat the cycle over and over again. Of course, I don't have that on the PTR. So you might think you want to use Holy Shock or retreating, but if you heal yourself with Holy Shock while running away, that's another 1.5 seconds of time that you kind of have to just keep running back towards the edge of the dual circle arena. So that's another, what, like 13 yards closer you get to the edge of the dual circle, as opposed to just stopping periodically and flashing of lighting yourself as you go, kind of a deal. So I had very limited HP to work with to push back the druid, which meant I had very limited space to work with to do any kind of kiting play. It's by the way, you do the kiting play to wear on their mana bar and also wear on their HP bar. Like I said, you don't want to go after the druid when they're full life and they're full mana, because especially a boomkin, because they feel very comfortable turreting on your ass. They will stand their ground and just cast spells into you until you fucking die. It's a much different scenario if the boomkin has taken 50% life damage from eye for an eye procs, a few exorcism hits, like an Avenger Shield hit here or there. They really don't want to shift out of form and try to heal themselves all that much. And if you turn and you start running at them, they're not going to turret, because if they turret, they die. So then they turn and they run, and that's the far more ideal situation. Very, very interesting dance. So I'm just looking at the situation, and I'm like, yeah, you're missing so many things in the PTR. It's objectively disgusting. So for example, you're missing a proper healing weapon. The thing they give you is absolutely terrible. A one-handed healing weapon. You don't really have one of those worth a damn on the PTR. You're missing an absolute ocean of HP, like literally plus 33%. You're missing something stupid like 33% to 50% damage on your two-handed weapon, which makes Reckoning just absolutely abysmal on the PTR. What else are you missing? You're missing access to more powerful trinkets or more specialized trinkets. That was one thing I wanted to bring up is Blizzard has been clearly looking for places to put stamina on classes in Classic World of Warcraft without violating a Classic WoW Classic WoW level itemization too terribly much. I think that's the correct statement, right? And one place that they feel like they've found, because it doesn't really exist in Classic WoW, is to start slapping stamina on trinkets. Trinkets vary in power level wildly. Like, their power level is just all over the place. A piece of gear will be like, item level, 60, and it'll have a very specific amount of stats allocated to it. But the trinkets are literally all over the place with their stats and their value. So it becomes very easy for Blizzard to slap a bunch of stamina on the trinkets. I technically approve of this, but if they want to do that, it suddenly becomes necessary for them to give Paladin some kind of gap closing mechanic, because traditionally their gap closing mechanics are in their trinkets. But if Blizzard has a plan to try to give us enough stamina to actually survive the day and do our damn thing by, forcing us to take trinkets that are heavily stamina-oriented, then suddenly a Divine Steed becomes necessary, if that makes any sense. So I kind of approve of Divine Steed all of a sudden, seeing the new trinkets that they're putting in the game and the whole idea behind it in general. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. Obviously, when I was doing the Druid, I wasn't using Divine Steed. Divine Steed is absolutely amazing. Would have made the matchup a hell of a lot easier. But I just wanted to try to duel without it and see what happens. And what happened was I got blown the hell up. Yeah, I think I've said just about everything that I wanted to say. Yeah, the PTR is really interesting because I'm aware of the power curve of Paladin. I'm aware of the power curve of all these other classes. Okay, that was the last thing to say. So, some people have been telling me, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but I'm hearing it mostly from enemy spellcasters. But what they've basically been saying is that Blizzard went overboard on Sunken Temple stat prioritization in favor of spellcasters to try to buff spellcasters. So in other words, the Sunken Temple loot. One sec, let me cough. They're trying to say that the Sunken Temple loot is overstated in favor of spellcasters for its level, and when they gear in Molten Core gear, they're gaining very, very little in the way of increased spell power. They're gaining a fair bit of critical strike, but not as anywhere near as much as you would think. I haven't actually looked at the difference yet. But according to them, they're going up something silly like plus 60 spell power and like plus 5% critical strike, like whoop-de-doo. For the purposes of bursting somebody out of existence, spell power is the far more scary stat than the critical strike. The critical strike just makes it so that the death RNG happens more often, right? The really scary RNG happens more often. It doesn't make them hit harder theoretically, right? So if you needed 8,000 hit points to survive enemy burst, and suddenly they go up another 10% critical strike chance, congratulations, you still need 8,000 hit points in order to survive their burst. It's just that now when they burst on you, more often you're going to need those 8,000 hit points, if that makes any sense. Because when the enemy bursts on you, they're really looking for the crits, right? And so if they're getting the crits 15% of the time versus 25% of the time, that doesn't really change how much HP you needed to survive the burst critting you anyways. What the hell was I saying? Right, I was talking about the power curves, right? So spellcasters are going to be going up in critical strike, but they're not really going to be going up in spell power all that much from Sunken Temple, which does not change the HP breakpoints all that much. They're also level 60, which means that their spells are at their most terrifying. Because think of it they've recently trained the max rank of their spell, right? So the spell's base damage isn't going to go up any higher. They're entirely dependent upon critical strike and, more importantly, spell power going up in the future. And their spell power from here to Nax is not going to scale all that quickly in the grand scheme of things. They might pick up plus 20% spell power. Paladin might pick up plus 30% healing. Those two things will kind of cancel each other out in the grand scheme of things, except what's really going to change as time goes on is that Paladin's going to go from 4,200 HP on the PTR to 5,600 HP to over 7,000 HP to 6k HP to 6,500, 7,000 HP. The HP is going to scale into oblivion. We've already seen how the weapons are going to scale like crazy from here. We didn't even compare it to Might of Minithil, right? It was 81, and then Might of Minithil is 95. Might of Minithil alone has more DPS than the entirety of your PTR Paladin, just standing still and looking pretty. So I'm painfully aware that Paladins are going to start outscaling both casters and other melee DPS as time goes on, just because of how Reckoning and Eye for an Eye work. It's oh, you're increasing your critical strike chance? Hell yeah. Oh, you're not really increasing in spell power? Oh, that's adorable. Same thing with the rogues and the kitty cats, right? The increased they've recently trained their abilities. The vast majority of their damage is actually coming baseline on their characters. If you increase their critical strike chance and you increase their attack power, their DPS actually doesn't go up all that much. But the more crit you put on them, the more happy Paladins are, especially if we're getting thicker and thicker and thicker health bars. So I'm painfully aware that Paladin's just going to get better and better and better and better in the future, and she's basically on course for becoming a PvP monster if built correctly. What else is there to say? Ba 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 ba. There was something else, but I can't quite remember what it was. Huh. All right. Well, I guess I'll end the video here. Oh, I'm gonna try to. I'll do some reduels with the boomkin, and we'll try to simulate actually having more Nax geared. My bad, not Nax. Molten core HP. So I'll literally put on like a flask of Titans, and I'll get like a food buff and like an HP buff, and I'll actually get my Paladin up to like 5,600 HP. I'll allow him whatever he thinks he gets out of Molten Core, as far as I can tell. So he might go up like 5% critical strike and like 60 spell power, but it's not gonna help. Like he's gonna kill himself off of eye for an eye, almost practically. I suppose I'll have to give him a flask of Titans as well. Yeah, so that should be fun. But you're going to see that my win rate is going to start going through the roof once I get enough HP to easily survive his bursts. Because if they can't kill you in a burst and they can't out HPS you, they're going to be in a mana war. Oh, yeah, that was the last thing I wanted to mention. This is actually really, really, really good game design for a burst... a bursting class like a Boomy. And why I believe this is as follows. A Boomkin has two RNG ways to kill you in a burst. The first way they can kill you in a burst is that all their stuff just crits, right? Or all the stuff they need to crits. Then they automatically have a really scary burst. The second way they can kill you, of course, is that stupid the blackout proc, basically the 3-second stun proc on the arcane spells. Even if they don't get crits, if that thing is just interrupting your healing, and it's just like perfectly timed to tell you to shut the fuck up, right? It's like, oh, shut the fuck up for 3 seconds. Well, I blast you, and then, oh, are you trying to holy light yourself? Okay, well, shut the fuck up for another 3 seconds. It's like, Jesus. That's a little bit hard for the druid to pull off, if you really stop and think about it, because their Star Surge is on it's not a Star Surge or Starfall, it's on a 6-second cooldown, and the other one's like a 3-second hard cast spell, I do believe. Maybe it's 2.5, I really don't know. So getting back-to-back stunned is not very likely. But where it really comes into play is when they've been chip damaging you and you're forced to stop and heal yourself, and that's when the thing comes crashing down and tells you to shut the hell up. Yeah. Now that I think about it, it's not that bad, really. But still, not being able to heal for like 6 seconds or more is pretty nasty. If you really think about it. Yeah, you start throwing grenades and goblin mortar and stuff in there, and I can see it being kind of disgusting. Oh, the other terrifying thing about this build, yeah, it's 5,600 HP, 5,000 mana, just chilling here. Everything's easy to get, and she still has like damn near 170 fire resist. Like, what the fuck? It's not even Hand of Rag, and this thing still has absolute metric shit ton of fire resist. So it's thanks to the trinkets mostly. Anyways, I'll end the video here, and Dave's fault, but people have just been like, we can't do this in the PTR. Blizzard really did Paladins a disservice in the PTR, because more than any other class, what Paladin can and cannot do in PvP is entirely dictated mostly by how thick your mana bar is. My bad, not mana bar. By how thick your HP bar is. The thicker your HP bar gets, the more lines of play become viable to Paladin, for all forms of Paladin, basically. And the fact that they have us out here with just a horrifyingly low amount of HP is an incredible disservice, because it means all the Paladin feedback that's going to come in is going to be wrong, basically. They're going to start saying things like, I need a gap closer. And I'm like, actually, you don't need a gap closer. I'm technically not wrong about that. We need more damage. And I'm like, no, you don't need more damage. You need more health. And you definitely don't need more damage because you got this dog shit weapon that they're literally, it's a molten core one-hander, poising as a two-hander. Like, what the hell is this? You're just gonna learn the wrong lessons. So yeah, I'll end the video here, and I'll go take a nap. Day of Soul, boys.